Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English channel. Now, in a series of videos that we are putting up recently, it includes monthly current affairs discussions for every subject. Now today, we'll be discussing science and technology events that happened in the month of December 2024. And the purpose of putting such videos is to inculcate the habit of revision in you. Because you understand, we read the papers or analyze the videos of those newspaper analysis on a daily basis. However, the importance of revision cannot be understated, because the revision process, it helps you consolidate the learning, it helps you remove your doubts, and it also helps you analyze the news article in a much detailed manner, which we are going to provide in our today's session. Now, we have also put up many similar videos which you can access on our YouTube channel, this channel on which you're watching this video right now. You have an option to click this video section. It will take you to all the videos that we have put up. Here you can access or you can see the schemes in news which have been put up yesterday. Similarly, we are going to put up every other scheme. Also, you have an option to make or access these videos in a much better manner. You can click on the word playlist here, and here we have curated or provided a separate playlist. So here, view playlist, and you get all the videos from the relevant scheme. Understood? So this is how you can watch those videos. Please utilize this opportunity to consolidate and to revise the important news articles. Understood? So let us move to our today's session. As you can see, I will be discussing 7 important current affairs events that took place in the month of December, particularly from the perspective of science and technology. So without further delay, let us start with our today's discussion. This first article appeared in the Indian Express Explained section, and it tells you that the Parker Solar Probe, which is the closest man-made object that has approached closest to the sun, has actually made significant developments. Now, this article is important from GS paper 3, like every other article in this discussion, because in GS paper 3 itself, we witnessed awareness with relation to space and other science and tech important topics. Now, let us try to understand the context of this development. Now, this is a mission by NASA, and the Parker Solar Probe has survived the closest ever approach it had made to the sun, and this makes it a man-made object which has reached the closest point to the sun, which is still about 6.1 million kilometers from the solar surface. Now, 6.1 million kilometers, in hindsight, it might be a very large number from you. You'll say that it is very far away from the sun. But in respect to its comparison from the distance between sun and earth, you can understand 6.1 million kilometers is a very small distance. And this is the first man-made object which has reached so close to the sun, and that is why this is such a significant development. Now, let us try to understand what this Parker Solar Probe is all about. Now, this is a part of NASA's Living with the Star program, which is intended to aspect or explore the aspects of Sun-Earth system and how changes in Sun's atmosphere, it directly affects the life and society in Earth. Now, it is designed to make observations of the Sun's upper atmosphere called as corona, and it carries 4 instruments which enables it to analyze the sun's outer atmosphere. Now, this is a critical contribution in the understanding the changes in sun's atmosphere, because it helps us forecast changes in our space environment, because you understand when these coronas, they are massively ejected from the sun, and when it reaches the earth, it creates a lot of atmospheric and geographic phenomena, most visible of which is the northern and southern lights. Understood? So this is what the Parker Solar Probe intends to do. Now, it is, as I told you already, it is the closest any man-made object has ever come to the sun, and it has endured up to a temperature of 1377 degrees centigrade. You understand, the water, it boils at the 100 degrees centigrade, which is quite high. Now, compare that number with 1377 degree, and this was the temperature that this Parker Solar Probe witnessed when it made that approach to the sun. But to protect this Parker Solar Probe from such high temperatures, there were 2 important additions made to the probe. First is that the outer surface of this consisted of a carbon composite shield which protected or insulated it from the high temperatures of sun, as it is about 4.5 inch thick in size. Also, this probe circulates a single gallon of water, which enables or which cools the temperature of such probe even after it is protected from this carbon composite shield. And this shield and water thermal protection enables it to bear such high temperatures. Understood? Now, let us try to understand what is the significance or why such approach to the sun is so significant for us humans. Now, the data which is collected by this probe, it will give us the clue about the long standing questions that we have. First question is that why is corona so hot? The temperatures it regularly reaches about 1 to 2 million degrees centigrade. So it will tell us the idea what are the gases or what are the factors that are at play which makes corona so hot in nature. Also, it will help us understand the origin of solar winds, because these solar winds, whenever they are ejected from the sun's outer atmosphere called as corona, and when it reaches earth, it interacts with the earth's atmosphere, and upon interaction with earth's atmosphere, it creates many geographical and atmospheric phenomena. First is northern and southern lights, which are also known as Australia's and Australia borealis. Also, these kind of interactions between solar flares and Earth's atmosphere can also have potential to disrupt our power grid, satellites and communication. So we need to understand how the changes in weather in sun can affect its ejection of corona, and how can we protect our power grid, satellites and communication satellites from coming or from these kind of solar waves. Understood? So this is the study that the Parker Solar Probe will help us understand. Understood? Now, let us move to another article. This one appeared in text and context section of the Hindu, and it states that the polio disease, which was earlier prevalent across the world, it has been eradicated from most countries except Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now, this article reports that there is a fear that this polio vaccine or polio disease, it could resurgence, and the evidence of this resurgence has been found actually in very developed countries located in Europe. So, let us try to understand the context of this article now. To understand the prevalence and transmission of such polio diseases, what the WHO does is that it undertakes routine surveillance of wastewater system. Now, wastewater system, whenever it will have polio virus in it, it can be detected by such routine surveillance measures. Now, what the WHO does is that it takes routine surveillance operations in many countries, and it has actually found a polio virus strain in a wastewater system in 5 European countries, that is Finland, Germany, Poland, Spain and United Kingdom, and all of these are developed nations, particularly Finland, Germany, Spain and United Kingdom. So you can understand when we are witnessing resurgence of polio virus in such countries, so smaller countries and lesser developed countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, etc. will be more at risk. So in our today's discussion, let us try to understand the facts related to polio virus and what would have been the reasons to detect such cases of polio viruses in wastewater of developed countries. Understood? Now, let us first understand what is polio. It is a viral infectious disease in which the virus, it multiplies in our intestines and therefore it affects our nervous system. Now, this is a disease which can paralyze you. That is why such kind of a disease is very important if we need to tackle such disease. The transmission of this disease actually happens from person to person, as it is an infectious disease, and mainly this transmission happens through fecal oral route. Now, the effect of this, primarily it affects children under 5 years of age, and you can see if they are caught polio, they become paralyzed, which affects their ability to move freely. Now, the cure of this kind of a disease is actually absent in current circumstances. Therefore, the best way to protect ourselves from this disease is actually prevention, which is provided through immunization by various vaccines. Now, the symptom of this disease is actually permanent loss of muscle function, and as you can understand, through permanent loss of muscle function, the persons who have polio, their ability to move itself is affected. So that is why we need to control this disease, because cure is not available. So the best option for us humans is to undertake prevention, which is provided through vaccines. Now, to prevent these kind of vaccines, these vaccines are intended to tackle 3 types of distinct viruses which belong to the polio family of viruses. These are wild virus type 1, 2 and 3. Now, although they are symptomatically very similar, that all of these three diseases have a same symptom of loss of muscle ability. However, these are three individuals and immunologically very distinct viruses. Understood? So that is why genetic and virological differences that are there in this kind of a disease have to be eradicated individually, and that is why we are witnessing that in countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan, the type 2 virus is still prevalent, whereas India has been able to eradicate all the instances of polio and it has become polio free back in 2015. Now, as I told you, the cure for this disease is currently not available, so the best way for us to be protected from polio is through the process of vaccinated. Now, there are two kinds of vaccines available to tackle polio. First is an oral polio vaccine, which is administered in form of drops, as you can see from this image here. There was this very popular campaign called as Do Boon Zindagi Ki, where Amitabh Bachchan used to advertise for the government of India, and it wanted people to become aware that such kind of vaccines, which are so easy to administer, are available at every nook and corner of our country, and hence we should bring our children so that to get them vaccinated for this polio virus. And this was a very popular campaign. And this oral vaccine, was very easy to give, that the training that you're required to give to a healthcare professional was very low, that they just needed to administer 2 drops of this vaccine, and hence the children was immunized. And this vaccine, it contained live but weakened attenuated strain, much like the COVID-19 virus. Now, there is a potential that once this weakened virus, which is actually live, it can mutate itself to become more dangerous polio virus, and hence it has a risk of rare but a vaccine derived polio virus. And this vaccine derived polio virus is probably the cause which has resulted into detection of polio viruses in the wastewater of many developed countries. So as to prevent from vaccine derived polio virus, there is another vaccine called as inactivated polio vaccine, which is given in a form of injection. Now you can understand any vaccine which is provided through an injection, it can be difficult to administer, as many people, they are afraid from injections, and also you need to provide much better training to the healthcare professional if they were to administer this particular virus. However, the advantage of this virus is that it is made from a killed polio virus strain of all 3 types. Therefore, this vaccine provides protection from all 3 types of polio viruses, and also there is no chances of vaccine derived polio virus because it involves killed polio virus strain, whereas on the oral case it was a live but weakened strain. Understood? So that is why it has been highlighted that to eradicate polio completely from the world, we need to depend more on inactivated polio virus vaccine and not oral polio virus vaccine. Understood? Now let us move to another article. This one actually appeared in the Indian Express newspaper Explain section, and this article highlighted the important breakthroughs that happened in the field of science and technology in the year 2024. So from this article, we'll be discussing 2 important developments. First is that there was a class of drugs which were made very popular last year called as GLP-1RA, or also known as GLP-1 receptors agnostics, kind of a drugs, and these drugs include drugs which are called as semaglutide as well as tirzepatide. Now these kind of drugs, they have a potential to be very transformative in nature. And why these are transformative? Because they help people lose weight. Now technically these were intended to prevent protection from diabetes. However, in recent times they have become quite popular in helping people to reduce their weight. So the current policies which are promoting healthy diets and physical activity, although they are very scientifically sound, but their impact has actually been not so effective on ground. And as a result, people have failed to curb the pandemic of obesity. So the natural alternative to diets and physical activity in these days have become these kind of drugs which help people lose the weight. Now these new therapies, they've actually demonstrated quite effectiveness, as they help reduce body weight between 10 to 25%. So theoretically, if a person is actually 100 kilogram in weight, he or she can reduce their weight by 25 kilograms. Now this kind of a drugs also has severe side effects which you have to realize. These include gastroparesis, such as an example of stomach paralysis, pancreatitis, which is a form of cancer, and also a thyroid cancer. Now the person, he or she is likely to gain weight when they decide to stop using this medicine. So it is another side effect. Also, this medicine comes at a significant high cost, and because of this high demand, there are chances that you have to purchase this medicine in black markets or in grey markets, and also there is a chance that such counterfeit products, which are not very effective and sometimes can even be dangerous for us humans, they are also available in the market. So this is the risks which are associated with these kind of drugs. Although they help you reduce your weight immensely, but they also have severe side effects, and there are chances that you are likely to gain weight once you stop using them, and these are very high costs. Understood? Now there was the second development called as CAR T cell therapy, which is also known as chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapy. Now the intention of this therapy is actually to use patient's own immune system and train that immune system to fight the external disease based cells in a much better way. Now what happens in this process is actually the healthcare professionals, they take or obtain blood from the patient, and utilizing this blood, they take out the T cells from it. Now these T cells, they are genetically altered in the laboratory with a special receptor called as chimeric antigen receptors, and then these CER enabled blood cells, these are multiplied in large numbers in the laboratory itself. Now after they are multiplied in larger numbers, the blood with CAR T cell is then injected back into the patient, and this enables the patient to find or fight cancerous cells in a much better manner. Therefore, it helps use patient's own immune system by making it charged, and this charged immune system is able to fight cancerous cells. Now this kind of a line of treatment is currently approved against leukemia, which is a cancer in blood cells, and also lymphoma, which arise from the lymphatic system. So these two kind of cancers can be dealt with the CAR T cell therapy. Understood? Now the benefits of this therapy is that it provides high to complete remission, that is the person who are undertaking CAR T cell therapy can defeat cancer by 100%. Also, this is a tailored medicine, which means the side effects can be quite low. However, there are significant risks also. That is, there is a side effect or the possibility of cytokine release syndrome, which leads to the immune system reacting quite viciously against any cancerous cells, and it can also destroy healthy cells in our body. Further, this kind of treatment is very expensive, so you can understand persons who do not have high income or do not have money adequately, they are unable to seek this kind of treatment. Understood? So these were two important developments from last year, that is the weight loss drugs and also the CAR T cell therapy. Now let us move to another article. This article appeared in the text and context section of the Hindu, and it stated the benefits of One Nation, One Subscription scheme. Now I'm sure all of you must be aware of what Netflix or Amazon Prime is, right? If you want to watch a video on Netflix, you have to pay to Netflix, and similarly have to pay to Amazon to access videos and movies and TV shows on Amazon Prime. And there are many such streams like Sony Live, Amazon Prime, Hotstar, etc., where you have to pay separately. So what if I tell you, instead of paying to these individual OTT platforms, you are just paying to one individual and you can access all the videos that are available in these platforms. Similarly, such cases have been applied to the subscription of journals for educational system also, and this is known as One Nation, One Subscription model. So let us try to understand what is this One Nation, One Subscription. Now currently, to access scientific journals like these, the institutes, they need to pay separately to the portals or the sites which are hosting these journals, and currently Indian universities are paying to as many as 10 different consortia which are providing scientific journals in the country. So as to do away with the need to pay 10 different sites or 10 different organizations for accessing journals, the government has come up with One Nation, One Subscription model, which is to improve the access of research journals to our country's public educational and research institutions. And this program will be implemented by Inflibinet, which is a center located in the city of Gandhinagar of the capital city of Gujarat. Now, currently, as I told you, these journals, they collect, review, edit, publish and archive these papers, and these sites are providing these kind of services for which they levy a fee to the readers like you and I. So if we were to access journals on these sites, we also have to pay for subscription to these journals. Understood? Now currently there are institutes in India who have subscribed to these journals, but this subscription requires them to pay to 10 different sites or journals who are hosting these scientific papers. So to do away with different subscription, the government is coming up with One Nation, One Subscription, which will merge all consortia and facilitate journal access in all public institutions, and this program is implemented in 3 phases. In first phase, the access of these journals will be provided to public institutions. Second, after public institutions are covered, then they will be provided to private institutions in the country, and in the last phase, universal access model will be provided where the citizens like you and I, who do not go to a university particularly, but if still we want to access these journals, we will have an option to visit public libraries, and there we can access the journals. Also, this provides for an open access, as there are many models in these journals. Well, the scientists themselves, they pay to the platform so as to provide these journals for free to readers of them, and for that the scientists need to give a substantial amount of money. So as to promote scientists, the government itself is saying that we have set aside 150 crore rupees every year, and we are going to pay on your behalf to these sites so that they can provide these journals for free to the readers themselves. Understood? So this is what the One Nation, One Subscription is. That instead of paying to different websites to access these scientific research papers and journals, we are just required to pay at one particular place, and then we can access everything which is available on the internet. Understood? Now let us move to another article. This article actually appeared in the science page in the Hindu newspaper, and it states that the Webb Space Telescope, it is expanding, or it is reaching out to the areas which was previously unexplored by the human space objects. Understood? So in this regard, let us try to understand what is this James Webb Space Telescope all about. Now, important developments related to the awareness of space and India's ability to explore space and other important organizations' ability are important from both prelims and mains perspective, as we have seen questions frequently asked on this topic. So that is why we make sure to cover such articles in a detailed perspective so as to help you analyze the achievements and help you develop a perspective in these articles. Now let us try to understand what is this James Webb Space Telescope. It is actually a better telescope than the Hubble telescope because it is its successor. Now this project was initially started by NASA with the help of European Space Agency and Canadian Space Agency. And this James Webb Space Telescope, which is located quite far from the Earth at the Lagrangian point, it will help us reveal new and unexpected discoveries and help humanity understand the origins of universe in a much better manner. And then after analyzing the changes in universe, we'll be able to place our place in it. Understood? Now for James Webb Space Telescope to have this kind of an ability, it is having different kind of instruments, which is near infrared camera, near infrared spectrograph, mid infrared instrument and near infrared imager. Now what you have to understand that the wavelengths on which this telescope operates is quite high and quite wide, that it takes light from visible, near infrared as well as mid infrared spectroscopy. Also the location of this space telescope in space is quite far from the Earth, whereas the Hubble Space Telescope, it was located quite close to the Earth. On the other hand, this James Webb Space Telescope is located at the L2 Lagrangian point, which is quite far away from the Earth. And as the distance between Earth and Hubble James Webb Space Telescope is quite high, it enables the James Webb Space Telescope to explore the much greater part of the universe. Understood? Now let us try to compare this James Webb Space Telescope with its predecessor, that was the Hubble Space Telescope. Now in terms of wavelength, I told you the ability of James Webb Space Telescope is to explore wider range of wavelength from near or mid infrared to visible spectroscopy, whereas on the other hand the Hubble was much less when it compared to in terms of wavelength. So you can see Hubble had 0.8 to 2.5 micron wavelength, whereas the James Webb Space Telescope has 0.6 to 28.5 microns. Whereas in terms of size of this telescope, it is much bigger for James Webb Space Telescope, and you can understand as the size of the mirrors used in these telescope are quite high, that means much larger amount of light it can absorb and reflect, then it will help it understand a much wider universe as compared to Hubble telescope. Further, the distance of the James Webb Space Telescope from the Earth is quite greater. That is why it is able to study exoplanets and birth of stars, whereas Hubble was only able to understand and explore toddler galaxies. Understood? So this is the comparison between James Webb Space Telescope and Hubble telescope. As James Webb telescope is much bigger, it can undertake or understand light of much bigger wavelength, and it also is located quite farther away from Earth as compared to the Hubble Space Telescope. Now let us move to another article. This article appeared in the op-ed section of the Hindu newspaper, and it states we need to deepen India's ability if it were to become a key spacefaring nation. So this development help you understand the developments of ISRO. As you can understand, to launch any satellite or a object into space, it requires the help of a rocket, and currently at ISRO's disposal there are 3 rockets. First is the PSLV, which is the workhorse of ISRO. This was followed by a much larger launch vehicle called LVM-3, another name for GSLV. And with GSLV currently, India is able to send about 6 tons worth of payloads into the lower Earth orbit, whereas in terms of geostationary orbit, here we can send about 2.5 tons of payload. Now, to specialize in launching smaller satellites, the ISRO has developed a new smaller satellite launch vehicle termed as SSLV. So these are 3 important rockets that are at disposal with ISRO. But now you can understand, as India is becoming a more developed nation, it will require satellites and space objects which are much heavier in nature. So for that, the ability of ISRO currently to launch any vehicle or any space object beyond the weight of 6 tons is not there. So for that, we'll be needing a next generation launch vehicle which will have the capability of lifting much higher than 6 tons, which is currently the limit of which the LVM-3 can carry. And it will also have the ability to reuse its component, and hence by reusing the components of next generation launch vehicle, the ISRO will be able to keep the cost of space missions much lower, and it will also reduce the time taken to develop the newer components for any rocket. So this is the ability or the benefits of next generation launch vehicle. Further, India and Indian government and ISRO is also looking to increase the private sector participation in our country's space sector. And the reason why we want private sector to participate in the space, you can understand it with the example of SpaceX, which is a private company located in United States. Now currently, the SpaceX has the ability to send highest amount of payload anywhere in the world. When you compare it with other organizations, even NASA does not have that kind of ability. Currently, even the astronauts which are sent to the International Space Station, they are sent on the rockets made by this private company itself. So when such private company can be developed in the countries like US, so why can't we develop similar private companies in India also? So that it will help ISRO to undertake its demand and meeting of space requirements. Further, the government is looking to give contracts to private company to design and develop launch vehicles, satellites, etc. And it is also exploring the collaboration between Indian companies and foreign companies, so that it will help Indian companies get better technology, understand the various challenges of space, and make it a much more fruitful business enterprise. Further, to explore or to fund these kind of newer startups, the government is looking to provide milestone based funding. Now, the space research and developments, these are very expensive in nature. So that for that, any private company would require large amount of money. So these milestone based funding are intended to help these companies get smaller milestones, and based on these milestones they can get higher funding from the government. Understood? So this is what is needed to make India a next spacefaring country, especially the ability to launch much higher and much heavier payloads into the space, which will be done through next generation launch vehicle, and also with increasing the private sector participation so as to help private sector collaborate with Indian Space Research Organization and supplement its effort in making India a space power. Understood? Now let us move to the last article of the day. This appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express, and it states that the central government, it wants to make snake bites a notifiable disease. Now first of all, you have to understand what are notifiable diseases. That these are diseases which the healthcare providers are legally required to report it to the government. So suppose if I make or if the government makes snake bites a legally notifiable disease, it will mean that if any snake bite victim reaches the healthcare centers, be it government or private healthcare centers, the healthcare centers will have to necessarily notify the government about it. Now, the ability, or why is snake bite being declared as a notifiable disease, is that the infections or any notifiable diseases, these are kind of diseases which can cause outbreaks and death of large number of people. So as to make any disease notifiable, it will enable the government to understand the prevalence of such disease, and it will also enable the government to react accordingly by making such preventive steps. Understood? So these are kind of diseases that needs to be investigated quickly, and the list, it might vary from state to state. So that is why the responsibility of making any disease notifiable, it is the responsibility of state government, not the central government. And that is why the central government is nudging the state governments to notify or make snake bites a notifiable disease. Now, this snake bite in general is a major public health challenge in India, as there are about 3 to 4 million snake bites every year, and the death out of these snake bites are about 58,000 every year. So you can understand thousands of people are dying and millions of people are getting affected just because of snake bites. And this snake bite, it can also create medical emergencies, as if not taken care of at the earliest stage. The poison of snake can create several severe paralysis in humans, which may even prevent them from breathing. The patients who are getting snake bites, they are subjected to fatal hemorrhages, and also it can damage their different tissues. So to prevent people from getting ill and also dying from it, we need to make much better preparedness to tackle the snake bite menace. Further, there are challenges in treating snake bites, because currently, although India has staff across the country for healthcare services, but these staff are not trained in providing the relief for patients who are having snake bites. Further, the test to test the kind of the poison that a patient may have, the tests are not available in the market. So that is why even if the healthcare providers, they are doubtful whether the snake has actually bitten or not, or whether the snake was poisonous or not, they are not able to gauge it properly because of non-availability of test. Also, to treat people, you need antivenoms. However, these antivenoms are just sourced from one tribe located in southern part of the country, that are Irula tribe. And the biochemical constituents, effect and potency of these antivenoms, they are quite varied in nature. So for example, if I have an antivenom for one kind of a snake, it might or might not work against the venom of another snake. So that is why you need to keep different kinds of antivenoms, and the supply of this antivenom is not proper because only one tribe is doing it, and that is why the demand for these antivenoms are across the country. Also, the commercially available antivenoms, they not work on some kind of species, because I told you the requirement for antivenoms is quite varied in nature. So the venom collection, it also creates certain problems, because currently the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, it limits access to snakes, and that is why even people who are wanting to collect these venoms from snakes, they are unable to do so just because of the legal restrictions. So this is the challenge that our country currently faces with respect to snake bites, and we need to make people more aware of the snake bites. We need to undertake developments of our healthcare sector so as to protect India from these snake bite instances. Now let us try to understand what are the benefits that will be made available by making snake bites a notifiable disease. As I told you already, it will help government undertake proper surveillance, as government now can understand the extent of these menace, that what areas are witnessing higher amount of snake bites, and accordingly scale up its infrastructure and manpower in the region. It can understand the supply of antivenoms. So this will help government react much better in a manner. Further, it will help determine the precise number of cases and death, as most snake bites, they currently happen in densely populated low altitude regions, which are primarily agricultural regions, and these are the regions where the development of healthcare sector has not taken place adequately, because naturally these areas are inhabited mostly by poor people. So we need to scale up the infrastructure, we need to deploy more manpower in the region. So this will be done after the government makes it a notifiable disease. Further, government will be able to make provisions of antivenom, impart training to the healthcare providers so as to enable them to react better, and if the patient comes with a snake bite, we can provide them with antivenoms accordingly. So this was all for today's discussion from the science and tech section. Please stay tuned to our channel for more such videos, and please make sure to like, subscribe our channel, as it helps us keep motivated. So I'll see you again. Until then, I bid you a very goodbye.